Follow your north. Embrace your present in this lifetime. Have faith, then faith. Every soul tells a predestined story written in the stars.
Welcome to Presente, a space and community that vibes on being in the moment, something we are relearning how to do in a fast-moving world.
We are excited to be part of a growing movement that talks about topics that we feel haven't been talked about in our Latin culture and womanhood.
Be present with us. Take a pause and break down societal norms.
Redefine the meaning of existing. Welcome to Presente, the podcast. Uncovering your purpose with the lunar nodes. Back in season 1, we explored our birth charts and discussed our big 3 energies present during the time we came to be here on Earth's soil, such as our sun, moon, and rising signs. We used our date of birth and time to pinpoint where the constellations were located in the skies above. We also briefly touched on the lunar nodes with guest speaker Brooke Bazzario on the topic of past lives and reincarnational experiences. If you're curious to know more, check out those episodes located on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. In today's episode, we explore another section of our birth charts using the lunar nodes. Hi, everybody. Well, first things first. This episode is one that I highly look forward to because I am a moon child and very much in love with the moon. And I always knew the moon was beautiful, dreamy, and uniquely designed for all of us to see. But little did I know how powerful she is. The power in her purpose during all of our lifetimes until this very day. It's remarkably fascinating. With that said, in this episode, we will explore the roles of La Luna, our moon, and the relationship we have with her, whether you know it or not.
Hello, I'm Faith Rodriguez, and I'm here on Presente.
To help us explore this deeper, we're honored to welcome Faith Rodriguez, founder of Back to Divinity, speaker, astrologer, and intuitive guide whose work beautifully bridges astrology, celestial insight, and soul growth. Faith brings a wealth of experience in guiding others through the mysteries of the natal chart and movements of the sky. Please join me in welcoming Faith as we journey into the magic of the lunar nodes. So happy to have you here, Faith. Thank you. This is such an interesting topic for all of us. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people who are listening that may have never crossed their mind, but they were intrigued about. Here with the lunar nodes, we're going to break it down for you. If you've ever been curious, just simply gazing at the moon, we're going to talk about her and so much more. But before we do, in simpler terms, for our listeners, what does the moon north node represent and the moon's south node represent?
So, the moon's north node is our north node of destiny. So, this is our purpose, what we're growing into in life, and how our soul is evolving and the direction it's evolving into. And then our south node is a little bit more about our past, what natural talents we're already bringing into this world, what we already possess, and a little bit more about our comfort zone, hence the areas in which we might need to learn a little lessons in for better balance.
I love that explanation because I feel like it makes it very clear for our listeners in terms of, again, defining what the simple terms are for our north node and south node. This topic is also very deep to everyone and everyone listening because your birth charts are all unique and tailored to the cosmic placements that were happening at the time of your birth. So can you go in and next question, what are the lunar nodes and why are they significant?
So the lunar nodes, this is 2 points in which the moon's orbit is sort of crossing paths with Earth's orbit around the sun. And so think about the north and the south pole, right? This is that north node and that south node that we're thinking to. So one direction in which we're moving towards and another direction in which is propelling that movement. And so the lunar nodes, generally, I like to consider them as sort of 2 halves of karmic history and karmic path here in your journey on earth, right? And so one half of it is really getting a direction into where we're looking towards, and the other half of it is looking back. And so oftentimes the lunar nodes are depicted in the picture of a dragon, in which the head of the dragon is that of the north node and the tail of the dragon is that of the south node. And so the north node is where you get most of your fuel, right? But at the end of the day, you can't really move without that foundation, and that's your south node. These are significant generally because it's getting us to understand a little bit more as to the why. Oftentimes as human, we're all questioning why. Why are we here? Why are we here on this earth? Why did I go through this? Why did this happen? And the lunar nodes sort of help paint a little bit of a picture as to uncovering the why. Of course, there's always going to be the unknown. Astrology won't answer every single question. However, it does paint a much more detailed perspective than otherwise.
To think that this beam of light that appears above the sky really influences our destiny, our life, and what we experience, what we go through. And here we are, just at least for me, I'm always in awe of the moon or praying to the moon. But I didn't realize the external impact because of the energies and what's orbiting around us, how it really affects us. Sometimes we think that it only affects us like if it's a direct connection or like a direct interaction. And in this case, the moon definitely affects us, guys. How do you think that the north node and the south node influence each other is in this, I guess, purpose of our path? Is it something that it's an active balance with the nodes? Is one node perhaps stronger than the other?
So I want to clarify the moon itself and why the moon is significant in understanding our karmic journey anyways, right? So the moon itself is very much representative of our inner core, the part that's really unseen, and even sometimes to ourselves, right? We have our subconscious that we're still getting to know on a day-to-day through our experience, and our dreams often inform us of things that we are going through. Our intuition often informs us of things before we even realize it on a conscious level. And then hence our desires very much connected to those emotions, those deeper longings that we have, all coming up for a reason, even though we don't know necessarily why. So of course we would look to that area, that planet, in order to understand what are forming these desires, what's pushing me in that direction. You know, why is it that I already possess this skill set so naturally compared to some of my other peers, right? And the moon is where you would look to for that, because again, the moon is you at your deepest core, even as you're still learning about you. And so that being said, to answer your question on the north node and the south node and thinking about that in terms of whether one is stronger than the other, if there's balance, the answer is always, always, always going to be balance. Ultimately, even though you are learning lessons around your south node, you're going towards the direction of the north node. However, in astrology, generally, we have our birth chart, and that's our circle, our wheel. And in a circle, there's always going to be that opposite axis. And everything, all planets, all follow that same format. And in that opposite axis, you're always going to want to find that middle ground. You're never going to want to be on the extremes. The extremes are why we end up having the north and the south node in the first place. You know, you came with that south node probably because you were on the opposite side or the extreme side of that zodiac sign's energy. And now you possess that so greatly, but now it's asking for that balance so that you can strengthen it with the other side of it. And I'll give an example. You know, right now we do have the north node in Pisces and the south node in Virgo. So we're all being impacted by this transit currently. And Pisces and Virgos are opposite signs. And that being said, just generally, Pisces is that of our intuition. Pisces is the moon. Pisces is the moon's home. And so Pisces is our intuition, our dreams, right? Our deeper emotions. And again, that really potent area of creativity, right? Because our emotions and our dreams and our intuition is all really forming a lot of our creative juices. The south node right now in Virgo, now Virgo is the opposite of that. Virgo is very logical, very detail oriented, and Virgo is really about service to others. And so that being said, having that dichotomy, right now we're really being pushed into thinking about how is it that maybe we need to find a better balance between making decisions using both our intuition and our logic. And so it's very interesting to see how, you know, even myself, I am a big proponent of like intuition. And I'm still learning lessons around making sure that I'm following that up with logic as well. And there are people who are on the other side of the spectrum where they're super logical and not using enough of their intuition. And so this is why balance is super important, because the opposite signs are always going to have the extreme ends of the spectrum. And hence why we have the energy around what an evolved sign is versus an unevolved sign. And in our journey, we are coming in as our unevolved South Node, right? And so I'll use myself as an example. I came into this world as a natal South Node in Capricorn. So I came in with the extreme traits of Capricorn, and that can be an overachiever, burying myself in work instead of dealing with certain emotions, and feeling like I need to just climb the ladder, but not necessarily for the best reasons. And having my North Node in Cancer is sort of pushing me to think about how is it that I can still use that motivation that I have to work hard, but tailor it in a direction where it's nurturing myself and those around me, and making sure that I'm actually, moving through the ways in which I normally would, but with more intention. And that wouldn't happen and wouldn't have been reached without the experiences that I'm going through on a day-to-day that are helping me learn lessons in those areas. And so this is why I say that the North and the South Node help us understand the why. Why did I go through that? Why did I approach that in that way? And we'll find a lot of those answers through the moon and her beauty.
That was a very deep explanation. Yeah.
I'm just like, I kind of understand me a little better now.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when we were discussing earlier about compasses, I feel like you just kind of like gave me that picture in my head where how the compass like moves around and direction from direction, and then it's always trying to point you north so you can be in balance. That's what I get that like picture of with the polarities and how everything in life is supposed to bring us back to those balances. It's hard sometimes. And the fact that our South Node is supposed to teach us these karmic lessons from our past and then embrace the North Node for our future purpose.
The way you were explaining it, and I know the listeners can't see, but you were also like doing the hand movements in terms of like the axes and orbiting. But I can really see how the North and South really play, I guess, in my life. Just knowing like my zodiac sign and birth chart, I was just blown away. I'm still trying to process it, but I was really blown away because that brings me into my next question, actually. When do the North and South Node usually start showing up more clearly or more vividly in someone's life? Is there a certain age or season? Tell me.
I loved this question just because I honestly have never asked myself that question before. And I took some time to really sit with it. And immediately, so intuitively, I was like, well, of course, when you're becoming an adult, right? Because that's when you're starting to process, what direction am I going to in life? What do I want to do? That's when everyone around you is asking, who do you want to be, right? And actually, when I went to go check, knowing the numbers around how, the North Node sort of goes back into your natal sign, it actually aligns perfectly when we are becoming an adult. So the North Node, of course, is in a certain placement when you're born. And we call that your natal placement. So your natal North Node and your natal South Node. And it takes around 18 years for the natal North Node to go back to where it was when you were born. So that being said, every 18 years, you hit your natal return. And so at the 18 age makes a lot of sense because that's when, many of us are thinking about what are we going to do after high school? Are we going into college? Are we going in this direction? Are we doing this? Right. And so it's very in alignment with the first time that you hit your natal return. And so many of us are already impacted by that, just with the way society is constructed, not a coincidence, right? And so every 18 years. And so hence it'll be when you're 36 again, is when you're hitting your natal return. So your natal North Node and natal South Node return is really calling on you to have that checkpoint. What are we doing? Have we learned the lessons that we needed to learn in order to fully start to step into our destiny? Are we ready and open arms to accept what is being given to us without worrying about self-sabotaging it, right? Because again, your South Node, what's behind you, is inherently your shadow. But our shadows can be helpful for us, but sometimes they can hurt us. And that's the biggest part with learning lessons around that South Node, around our past. Right? It's our comfort zone for a reason. Our comfort zone is great because it gets us to, remain in what makes us feel good, but it's not good enough in terms of getting us to expand and push out into the direction in which we're meant to go now, right? And so Every 18 years is very significant. However, there is a midpoint check-in, and we call that the nodal reversal. So the nodal reversal is basically when your natal north node is actually in the south node and your natal south node is actually in the north node. And that happens at the halfway mark within those 18 years. So when we're 9 years old, when we're 27, and things of that sort. And so your natal reversal plays a really big role as well, because this is when it's really asking you, are you ready to be balanced, right? Are you ready to really put your south node energy into helping propel you into your north node and vice versa? And so the nodal reversal is super pivotal because it's that midway check-in of like, okay, what do we need to do differently to make sure we're on our aligned path? Otherwise, we will be playing out some of the similar karmic paths that we already have gone through, right? And so that's when we start to ask ourselves, what patterns have I been playing out? What cycles have I been in? And really getting you to think about how you can shift it within the next couple of years. And it's great that it runs on the 9. Thinking about numerology, the 9 is the end. And then it goes again into 1 and it starts all over again. And so it's interesting because it's really asking you within those 9 years, how can we make sure that we're getting to that balance? And the next 9 years is just perfecting that balance so that you can be ready for that nodal return. And so, yeah, those are the really pivotal moments. Every 9th multiple of your life is heavy energy around re-checking in with yourself in terms of your karmic path and your growth.
Wow. I'm not going to really disclose my age right now, but
Mhm.
I am in my mid-late 30s, and this puts so much into perspective at those age points you mentioned, whether it's
Mhm.
18, 27, and then bringing in the nodal, say that again, nodal reversal? What was it?
Reversal. Nodal reversal.
When you mentioned that, I figured like, wait, so your south node becomes your north in a sense. And then I'm thinking about my life at that point in time, and I'm just like, get out. This is so directly true. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm just, glimpsing and back and forth, like, okay, where was I at this point in time in my life? This makes so much sense. Oh my God. What do you think? Because I'm blown away.
There was a lot of things. To me, when you mentioned societal conditioning, this reminds me a lot of breaking the matrix and embracing everything, who you're really meant to be, and step away from the box society likes to place us in. And then the parts where you mentioned also those points where you're checking in with yourself reminds me a lot of spiritual like awakenings. Like,
Yes.
you have to like go internally. You kind of just wake up with that feeling like there's more than what was written.
And that's definitely the beauty of the moon, right? Because the moon knows before you know. And that's what I
Yeah.
love about the moon, because the moon is you internally. And a lot of the times we struggle with having the best relationship with our internal. And that's society's conditioning, right? We don't spend enough time academically growing up talking about emotional intelligence. We spend a lot of that time talking about academic intelligence. And it's super important that emotional intelligence is still worked on throughout your life, because that's actually what makes you work better towards your north node and your south node, because it is connected to the moon at the end of the day. And our emotions really dictate how we choose to spend our time, how we choose to, approach our day-to-day in life, and the decisions that we make, those larger decisions, especially about the directions in which we go. And I'm thinking about an 18-year-old who feels intuitively called, not to go to college in a world where college is, uplifted as the right direction. But the beauty of the understanding the north and the south node, and just the way that you said it, Jissela, before, is that, the cosmic fingerprint in a way, right? Everyone has our individual fingerprint, and your birth chart is your cosmic fingerprint. And it's very different from anyone else's. That being said, your karmic journey and path is also very different from someone else's. And when you feel guided to go in one direction, it's super important that you listen to that, making sure that it's aligned, right, with your soul's growth and evolution, and making sure that your desires are aligned with your soul's growth and evolution, and therefore freely following it, and hence feeling as if you are going in the direction in which you are meant to go, rather than just following the masses.
That was nicely explained. I definitely feel like everybody is on their own path and journey. And when you're spiritually awakening, you go through like this breakage first. Like, it feels messy in the beginning. And then you start to like go through like this fog, because it's like, what direction am I heading in? Like, what is my true, purpose? What is it that pulls me, to wake up every morning with motivation, excitement, or even in our lows? Like, what is those lows that connect us and branch us to supporting others in their own journey? Which I guess brings us to the next question, which is, how can the South Node lessons help us with our North Node goals?
I feel like oftentimes people say this saying, like, you're at your lowest before you're at your highest, or, you have to, there's a lot of different sayings that sort of mean that people use, but that's standing out to me when I think about how the South Node helps you get to the North Node. Across many different belief systems, we all sort of understand this idea around being tested, right? Having your faith tested, something tested, right? Before you can get there. And I know I mentioned earlier, the universe is going to open up to you what you are meant to receive. Now it is fully up to you on whether you are actually able to see it. And oftentimes we're not able to see it if we haven't overcome some of the lessons that we needed to in our journey, right? And this can show up in many ways, right? Whether that can be a person that was put in front of you, a job opportunity, or whatever that came across your path, and you feel like it was a missed opportunity, but in reality, it just was that you were not fully ready to take it and receive it in all its glory, right? Because either some way, shape, or form, your fears would have taken over, your limiting beliefs would have taken over, or whatever South Node qualities that were just not helping you would have taken over. And this is why the South Node lessons come into play. And so I guess that I'll use myself as an example again. With the South Node in Capricorn, I had to undergo a big part of my journey when going into college around that 18 timeframe, was really thinking about, what did I want to do with my major and things of that sort, but making sure that those decisions that I was making was not informed by institutions and authority around me, because Capricorn are institutions and authority. And I felt as if I was making a lot of decisions for others and not necessarily for myself. And that's where the North Node in Cancer sort of comes in. Cancer energy is related to the moon. And this is our emotions and our nurturing side. And I felt as if there was an imbalance in the way that I approached my work. Now, great, I was known as a high achiever. I always got my things done. And this is all great qualities. At what cost was that to myself, right? Reaching burnout several times and not really understanding what it meant to balance that with taking care of myself, right? Or balance that with taking care of my creativity, rather than just, focusing on just achievement and products only, right? And so those are some of the lessons that I personally had to go through. And through some of those lessons, which honestly is really just heavy reflection and taking that time to really sit with yourself and unpacking why you decide to do the things you do. What actually motivates you, right? Where is that rooted in, right? And a lot of those questions I was asking myself, it really helped me uncover, the why. And oftentimes I would find the why has nothing to do with me. And that's when I started to realize, okay, let's center it back to me and my true moon and where I want to go and what my true desires are. And it was through those South Node lessons that I was able to do that. Now, does that mean that I should get rid of my great South Node qualities? No, I can still use all of those qualities to help me in the direction in which I'm now going. But now I'm making sure that all of the productivity that I'm doing is, going into the direction of, what is most in alignment with my emotions. And to me, that's making sure that I'm having a really big impact on nurturing others around me. And so now that fuels me, but that wasn't necessarily what fueled me prior. And so I appreciated all those lessons that I went through, and they were hardships, right? A lot of the times it feels like you're falling apart, like you said, when you're having a spiritual awakening, it feels as if you're getting rid of certain layers, but that's a part of the process, right? Because as you're doing so, you're adding other layers on top. And now it's just building sturdier foundations, right? Getting rid of those loose bricks in your wall and replacing that with sturdier bricks, making it so now wherever you go, you're a lot stronger and you can't be tumbled down, right? And so therefore preparing you for whatever opportunities are actually meant to come your way. And now you can see them and now you can be receptive to them. And so it's really a journey, and it's always going to be continuous, right? This is happening continuously. There's so many more lessons for me to learn in this lifetime in that area. And that's the beauty of the North and the South Node, is that it's a forever journey, right? It's not something that you can just be like one and done. I've perfected it. I'm on my destiny and I'm good. It's not going to be that like that. It's not going to be that easy. It's a part of a journey. And as you go, you should celebrate the win. You should celebrate when you find yourself, uncovering, wow, I might have been self-sabotaging a little little bit without realizing it. And, it takes a lot of self-awareness to get to that point. And the South Node really helps us do that. And the North Node is honestly just helping us have that sense of direction, helping us see where we are probably on the other side of the spectrum and how we can move the dial a little bit closer to the center.
It's definitely a lost but yet found moment to think about our destinies and stepping away from what others would like for us, I guess, to do with our journey, and more or so listen to our intuition, as you said, our deeper truths, our hidden truths, which are associated with the moon. I was going to say, similar to you at 18 years old, I also found myself not knowing what to do after I graduated from high school. I started off with an architecture background, and then I was like, but this is really appealing, to my family. I did have an interest in design. It wasn't the right direction for me. So I had to pivot into communications and media, and I loved doing design editing and all of that there. But I realized visual storytelling to share with other people and to kind of build community, that was, I guess, something I was moving towards. That was because I have a North Node in Aquarius and my South Node is in Leo. So I'm following my North Node as a more, I guess, a collective mission over here. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you very much for bringing all that to our attention. I'm very mind blown by this breakdown. Again, gazing into the moon all my life, just like many that are listening or not, it's something that's there at night for us to really just glorify. But in knowing there's a deeper connection there in relationship, knowing like that guidance has really been with me and everyone else all along, all this time, it's comforting. Now I actually get to know, I think, not just the moon from what I'm learning up here right now, but knowing even more so about yourself, because like you said, we're connected intuitively, and it's something I always felt. I think people feel it, they just don't know how to always articulate that or explain it, because it's not like in the palm of our hand, like, hey, let me give this to you so you can now see it. Everyone's experience is obviously different, everyone's natal chart's different. So this has been super, super insightful. I want to learn even more. I hope to continue this conversation with you, Faith, and this topic. I think more people will start getting some type of awakening, whether it is spiritually or not, but they'll make sense of that awakening when they arrive to it. Again, thank you so much. This has been super insightful. Thank you for using yourself as an example. While we have you here, please let us know for our listeners how they can get in contact with you.
Alrighty, yes. Thank you all so much for having me here. Those were great questions. It also just sparked something within me as an astrologer, just like thinking about timing a little bit more. And how that's impacted just the collective. But I have a platform, Back to Divinity, on all socials, Instagram, TikTok, as well as an Apple Podcast and Spotify, also called Back to Divinity. And on any of those platforms, you'll be able to find the link in the bio to my link tree, and that'll show you where my website is. And there you can book a reading or any astrological insight that you would like, whether that's just understanding your natal chart a little bit more, or just generally understanding how a current transit is affecting you at this time. But yes, feel free to click on any of those links, and I am there and available to support.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, I'm Faith Rodriguez, and I'm here on Presente.
Life is a mystery. Did we choose our soul contracts before we made it to Earth, or was this simply the way we were meant to exist? These are the questions that float in my mind sometimes. As we learn, the South Node explores our past selves. The North Node is our present purpose. It can help steer our ships to clearer waters. It can awaken our truest selves and how we create new paths for a new Earth. Imagine if we listen to our soul's compass and the possibilities it can lead to.
Hey there, want to stay up to date with the latest episodes and exclusive interviews? Subscribe now and never miss a moment of the conversation.